energy prices are soaring, our bills are getting more and more expensive, and there's a crisis where no one can see where it ends. And one of the best things you can do to try and control your energy costs is to invest in a smart heating system, such as the Honeywell Evohome, or Tado, or Nest, or a few of the others. Now, these systems allow you to control the temperature in each room individually. So if you're working from home and only using one room most of the day, you can heat only that one room rather than heating the entire house with a traditional centralized heating system. Now, I've used the Honeywell Evohome system for quite a while right now, but a few things have frustrated me to a point where I actually want to try out the latest Tado, how you pronounce it, Smart Thermostat. So if you are interested in knowing which one is better, the Honeywell or the Tado, then stick around. And I'll also put links down in the description below with the best discounts I can find if you want to go buy one of these for yourself. Now, firstly, why use one of these two specific systems, and why haven't I compared the Nest? And the answer is really simple. The Nest thermostat doesn't allow you to easily control the temperature in individual rooms, which is by far the biggest selling point and biggest feature in terms of saving money with both the Honeywell and the Tado can offer. Now, they do this by swapping around the traditional radiator valves with the smart kind of battery operated valves instead. They have built-in thermostats in them, so when the room reaches the set temperature, they'll actually dial themselves back and basically keep the room at whatever temperature you set to them. So if you are fighting against all of the increased prices, then investing in one of these systems, whilst it does of course cost you to buy the thing to begin with, well, prices are only going to go one way, and that's up. And as we've discovered recently, they're going up a lot faster than any of us could have expected. So if there's one thing that I could ask you to do before we get going, it's completely free, and that is to subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out. And if you are subscribed already, maybe click the like button instead. Also completely free. Now let's dive into the comparison to see which one has the best features, how the costs stack up, and which one I'm going to keep in my home. Now, fundamentally, these do pretty much the same thing. You fit these valves onto each radiator that you want to control, and then you can use the app to control which rooms are warm and like when. They are pretty easy to fit. You just unscrew the old one and then screw on the new one, and you'll only have issues if you have some like non-standard valves on them, but even then there is a ton of adapters that come in the box that should then make them fit. Now, once they are fitted, you can then customize them on a day-by-day basis, or just have the same thing happen every single day. The app interface is also relatively similar between the two of them. You tap into each room and you can then manually control the temperature. Now, they both have all the same limited kind of smart features on them, such as when it's going to be a warm day outside, they won't heat the rooms because it knows that the sun's going to do the job instead. And this is now where we start to see some differences that I believe push Tado ahead of the Honeywell system. Now, firstly, location. Cool feature number one, or rather it should be called warm feature number one. With Tado, it tracks your location so that when the house is empty, your heating will then cool down by a few degrees. And not only that, but as you approach the house, say if you're coming home from work, then it will intelligently warm up the house so it's warm by the time you get home. But for it to do this, like automatically, you have to subscribe to their subscription service because, well, who doesn't have a subscription service nowadays? And that costs either a small amount per month or about, I think, £25 per year or so. But with the monthly, you can subscribe only, for the months that you actually need to use it. So subscribe in the winter and then leave it switched off, and don't subscribe in the summer. Seems to be a good kind of workaround there. With the Honeywell Evohome system, it doesn't do this. I mean, actually, it doesn't do this at all. It doesn't even know you've left the house. Instead, you have to sign up for a service like If This Then That, and then create an automation for if I leave the house, switch it off, and if I enter house, switch it on. It's not that difficult to set up, but considering it has an app that's on your phone that's constantly tracking you, I don't see why it can't do it without faffing around with something else. Okay, so that out of the way. Second, looks, noise, and child tampering. Personal opinion, I like the look of the Tado one better. It's cleaner, smaller, looks better. And also, the noise that you hear when the TRVs are turning the radiators up or down, the Tado is significantly much quieter. I can barely even hear them compared to the Honeywell Evohome, which you can definitely hear that. And actually, to a point where my kids complain about the noise in the bedroom at night. So yeah, point to the Tado right there. And then the child tampering. Now, there does seem to be two different models of heads for the Honeywell system, but there's this newer design that has buttons on it. But what I have here is still a current version, and it seems to be the main model that they still sell. It's pretty difficult to see from their website. But I can understand why the Honeywell system went for this kind of design of this flip-out LCD screen thing. So you can adjust it and you can see it from any angles. But kids, we've lost two of these over the years where kids have just twisted it, broken it, and snapped it. Now, Honeywell do offer a solution. Basically, it's this fixed piece of plastic, which you then clip in, like so. But it's still not really a great fix, in my opinion. I'm just lucky that my kids are now getting a bit too old for messing around, and they're starting to, not completely, starting to listen sometimes. But otherwise, and speaking of kids actually, tampering. Both of these systems allow you to lock the TRVs, so you can't change them by twisting them. Instead, you can only change them via their app. Which then brings me on to another frustration with the Honeywell system. The child lock setting can't be changed from inside the app. It can only be changed from this like main control screen thing, and even then it's hidden away under this secret like installer menu. Thirdly, you've got reporting. Now the Honeywell system doesn't really give you anything in terms of historical reporting of like room temperatures, whereas the Tado lets you easily see the historical temperature of the room and when heat's been called from the boiler, and it also brings in other stats such as the sun and like the rainfall. But it doesn't stop there either. Each Tado thermostat has a built-in humidity sensor somewhere into them, and there's also a feature called Energy IQ where you can enter your tariff information, and your app will actually calculate how much you've spent through each month. Now there's also a whole page dedicated to savings, which I'm yet to actually get access to because I haven't yet had a full kind of calendar month use yet. There's also an air comfort section in the app which actually provides some really in-depth stats from the like air quality outside, which it doesn't get via its own sensors, but it actually just uses the internet to pull this data in for your location. But that's still really, really good to see. Something else that's also been really good for me within the app is pollen forecast, which when you have kids with allergies really helps you plan for when specific types of pollen are going to be really, really high. There's also a care and protect section, which I'm not sure how exactly, but it says it will monitor your boiler for any unusual activity and then pre-warn you with some additional links to like book a repair and new boiler quotes. And this section, which I really quite like, where it shows you which rooms in your house you've spent the most time like heating it. So the most energy's been going to those rooms to heat them. For example, I can see that our living room takes by far the most energy out of our whole house to heat, and that's because we have a conservatory that's attached to it, which is old and basically lets all the cold air in anyway. Next up is battery life. That's probably something you might be concerned about over time, because with 12 of these around my house, that's quite a lot of batteries to replace. But to be fair to them, both these systems do last a considerable amount of time. I think it's 2 years battery life touted for these TRVs. Now I've got no long-term stats on the Tado, but with the Honeywell, I've had it for like 4 or 5 years, maybe longer. And the only issue is that the battery in this main controller lasts no more than a few seconds now. But as long as you keep it on this charging pad, it's not a problem. And I probably, could get a new battery for it, being so old. But with that said, there are some differences between the two. And again, the Honeywell system doesn't show you the battery level in the app. It only shows you a warning on the main screen. Whereas once again, the Tado app lets you see this and check on things like the battery and the TRV status. And another thing that the Honeywell doesn't do, because if the TRV isn't mounted on your radiator, then it shows you in the app. One more to show you is how long it takes for a change that you make on the app to be sent to each radiator valve. And on the Honeywell, it was about a minute to 2 minutes, whereas on the Tado, it was like 10 seconds. Much, much faster. So after all that said, it is no surprise that the Tado system is by far the better system to buy out of the two, in my opinion. But what about the cost? So taking my house as an example, I have a combi boiler with no water tank and 12 radiators around the house that I want to control. Here in the UK, it is the perfect time to buy one of these systems because it is just approaching spring and there are some pretty good discounts on buying these, and I'll have those linked down below. So the Tado for the system and 12 TRVs came to, I think it's about £700, whereas the Honeywell Evohome comes to a ridiculous £1,300. So buy the Tado, it's definitely the best one of the two systems. Please go watch another video, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye-bye.